At this time, we'll open up the May 26, 2016 meeting of the Middleton Zoning Board of Appeals. There are just a few items on the agenda tonight. The first will be the minutes from the May 5th, 2016 meeting. The board members had an opportunity to review them.
Yes.
Any changes, questions? Anything else to review? Hearing none, I will make a motion to approve the meetings from May 5th, 2016. Do I have a second?
Second.
Vote?
Yes.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. The first continued hearing for tonight is 1 School Street, appeal of the Building Commissioner's decision number 1003. Is there anyone here to speak in favor?
Good evening. Tom Moore, 1 School Street. You asked for an update during the last meeting. We have had discussions with the butters. We are going ahead, hopefully with one of them, and we still need a few others to get this job done, but we are moving ahead with it.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
The applicant has asked for an extension of time for this appeal. Any discussion, concerns?
No discussion.
Hearing none, I'll make a motion to continue this hearing until the June 2016 meeting. Unless the building,
Or 6 months. They're asking for either just the 1-month extension or 6 month, but with the condition that either party can give a 30-day notice to continue to the next meeting, in case things move quicker than they think.
any objection to the 6-month continuance? To allow them time to resolve the issue?
And that's only in case sometimes the meetings have to be canceled, or you want to take a vacation because there's nothing else on the agenda in the summer, so.
Works for me. And I will make a motion to continue this appeal to June, July, August, September, October, the November 2016 meeting, with the condition that with 30 days written notice, that either party, either the town or the applicant or the appellant, may give notice to the other to appear at the next regularly scheduled zoning board meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. The next item on the agenda is,
Well, I had just a question to ask you.
thanks, guys.
Is there going to be any time limit if they continue it again or again? I mean, is there any time that conclusion takes place?
It's up to the board when we meet again.
Okay.
If they're making reasonable efforts as they have been, then
Okay.
the board can
Okay,
address
good.
those at the time, certainly. We're just trying to work with them as best we
Yes.
can, of course. The next item on the agenda is 161 to 163 Rear North Main Street. It's a site plan review for an industrial park under section 6.6, Bay Property Management LLC, application number 1010. This meeting is continued from the last meeting that was actually this month. Since then, we've had a site walk, and there's been correspondence.
Yeah.
For the purposes of this application, Mr. Yeppel will be sitting on it. He has signed the Mullins form indicating that he has reviewed the last meeting, and the 5 sitting members here will be voting on it. Madam Clerk.
Yes. Okay, we have one from the Public Works Department, dated May 26, regarding 161, 163 Rear North Main Street. I've completed my review of the site plan for 161 and 163 Rear North Main Street. The review included plans dated 3/21/16 and revised 5/20/16, as well as a stormwater report dated 4/4/16 and revised 5/20/16. At the time, the Department of Public Works has no issue or concerns as the plan are today. However, the town's engineering consultant, DK Engineering Associates, Inc., has not had a chance to respond to the most recent plan revisions. I've spoken on the phone with DK Engineering, and he has a couple of drainage report issues that need further clarification. These issues are not substantive in nature and would not alter the drainage system as a design. If the Board of Appeals so chooses to vote in favor of the petition tonight, I would recommend the following. The developer may not start any construction until the Superintendent of Public Works has been notified by DK Engineering that all his comments have been resolved. And that's from Bob Labassiere.
Thank you.
And there's also something from the health director. Much longer.
There's,
Yes.
yeah, rather lengthy note here. Do you want me to paraphrase the end? I think there's a summary.
Katrina, it's my understanding that the letter from the Board of Health wasn't specific to this property as in terms of recommendations. It was more general broad strokes of things that the board should look at, may look at for this application, but also to address maybe with its regulations moving forward in terms of how we
Right, it,
review projects and the prism with which we review them.
and so this has to do with noise and noise problems in the town of Middleton. Right now, the police department and the health department are getting many calls regarding noise. And we have no noise bylaw in Middleton. We did try and adopt one a couple years ago, but it failed. The state does have regulations concerning noise, but they don't really enforce them. They ask that the towns enforce them. The town has limited resources to enforce it. We have no way to measure noise. And so I think what Derek is bringing up with the board is when we are doing site plan review or reviewing special permits, we consider asking the owner or the applicant to take the burden of dealing with the noise. And that would be having some kind of agreement with a noise specialist to measure the noise at certain intervals and to deal with complaints from the neighbors even.
How do you anticipate future noise?
I think that's part of what we need to review as a board in terms of how we're going to implement the policy. And that's why I said it's an issue of first impression with him, and he's kind of bringing it up to us in a general sense as opposed to here's what he's recommending we do right now for this project, which
Well, we kind of covered that in the past by putting hours of noise. Yeah, so I
and
mean,
we can certainly address it,
Yep.
those kind of specifics with this
Yeah.
application, certainly. So he was just he was more lamenting the task that he has and the town's police department has with having to address noise complaints without a proper vehicle to do so, or even having an expert or mechanism in place to do so. So more of our way of saying, his way of saying, try to do what you can without going.
And shift the burden on the owner rather than the taxpayers paying for staff to go out there continually and not really being able to do anything.
Okay,
Very well. Is there any other correspondence?
well. This is her thing, right?
Yep.
That's her thing.
Nothing
And
to
that's
us.
DK. Just his own stuff. That's about it.
Seeing none, Katrina, there's been some concerns, I guess, brought up about the zoning on the property
Yes.
and the history of the zoning on the property.
All right, let me just.
Can you go through
Sure.
that, just so we can start with a clean plate?
Okay, yeah, and so we have heard a lot of concerns on the part of the neighbors regarding the zoning and the changes in zoning next to their property. You know, I've heard different reasons, you know, why they're upset with the zoning, that, you know, maybe the process isn't as transparent as it could be, and that they're not notified of the zoning changes, or that some of them never knew that they were next to an industrial zone, et cetera. And so I just wanted to make it clear that after reviewing the zoning changes through the years, and this is a project I did when I was first hired here, when we switched to, when we hired a GIS consultant to put our maps up online, I had to review every single zone line as it existed in the town and compare that to the text version in the town clerk's office that were approved by the Attorney General. And I did find little errors here and there on the zone line, because originally the zone map was, I think you take a little X-Acto knife and cut out, you know, textures and place it on there. It was very rough. And so when we switched to the GIS consultant, everything is exact. It's you know, they have the perfect dimensions, because you can zoom in very close to it, and it has to be exact at very close ranges also. And so up on the screen, what you'll see is, or what you, maybe a little blurry, I'm gonna try and zoom into that corner. Is that a little better? So, the Dixie, I think I even have a little highlighter here. The Dixie Circle neighborhood is right here, as you can see. And then this blue line here appeared in 1983. Before 1983, this whole area was R1B, which is a residential zone requiring 40,000 square feet. This yellow area right here was the edge of the R1A. So what existed back then were two residential zones before 1983. In 1983, this light blue line was created, and that was called the B1A zone. B1A is limited commercial. It's like shopping centers, things along those lines. In roughly 1986 or 1987, I think I have the dates here, Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the Dixie Circle subdivision was done. I think it was called Pine Hill Estates. So that happened in 1986. These houses were built, and I forget when the building permits were pulled, but it was definitely after this blue line existed here. And then in the year 2000, and this is as a result of the 1999 master plan. During the master plan, we held 2 public meetings. They conducted a townwide survey, and as a result of that input, it included the following statement. Concern for local taxes was the 3rd highest objective. This is reflected by a desire to increase business in Middleton, primarily for the purpose of broadening the tax base. So that result from the input from the public resulted in goal number 4.2, to attract new small businesses and situate them in easily accessible areas to minimize traffic congestion, which ended up in recommendation 14.32, which was to change the B1A limited business zone on North Main Street, north of DeBusch Avenue, to M1 light industry. Also expand the zone slightly to include some land currently zoned R1A and R1B. So in the year 2000, that is why you then see the light purple? That's just to signify that that whole B1A zone was rezoned M1, industrial, and also this green area was added to it at the same time. I'm not going over all the other changes surrounding it. It really doesn't have a lot to do with that area. So that is basically, you know, the history of the zoning changes in that area. And when each of those zoning changes occurred, by state law, the planning board has to hold a public hearing. And that's put in the newspaper and posted at Town Hall. No notices to abutters are required to be sent out for that public hearing. However, when after the public hearing, it is then put on the town warrant, that town warrant goes out to every single house. And it describes the whole zoning change in the town warrant. And that's the only notification that is required as part of a zoning change. That was all done. The Attorney General was then sent all the zoning changes and all the requirements for legal ads and postings, and the Attorney General approved the zoning. And so nothing was done wrong. It was all done legally. We could change the way it's done in Middleton if residents feel like they weren't notified. We could have more public meetings beforehand. We could even send out notices to every resident. It would cost money, but that could be done too. So the town has abided by state law requirements in every way for all the zoning changes. And I guess that's it.
Thanks. Do any of the board members have any comments, observations from the site walk, or anything from further review of any of the documents submitted?
I just have a comment on what Katrina is talking about with the notification. And at our last meeting, owners stood up here and they had deeds and they were talking about its residential property, and that was their knowledge when they bought, and I can appreciate their position. And as Katrina points out, the town's obligation, it appears, is to go to the town meeting on the warrant, and that's how these things are changed. And on a practical standpoint, citizens who live in the town and get the warrant and don't have a particular issue going on may just put it in a pile and not sit down and give too much attention to it. It appears the only notification they would get is in that warrant. And I think that's a difficult way to do business. I inquired at the town clerk's office and spoke to the gal there. She had all the answers, and I understand how they operate. But I agree that there should be a better way, and if a warrant like that is passed, that the town would go to the extent of at least notifying abutters that there's been a change in the zoning. And I think that, a lot of people suffer from the fact that they didn't think they had an issue that was involved in the town warrant, so they didn't bother going to the meeting and didn't really sit down. The warrant, of course, is a lengthy document, and if you don't have a particular interest, I can see why people wouldn't sit down and read the entire thing and would be unaware of the fact that a change has been made.
I think they should be notified before the meeting, the abutters.
Mr.
About the
Chairman, may I
proposed
respond?
changes.
Please.
Just to explain that each zoning change, it's hard for someone to decide who is affected by a zoning change. Some zoning changes definitely affect one area more than another, but they could affect the whole town, and it isn't up for us to decide how each zoning change affects an area. This particular one, yeah, it definitely, we could say it affected that neighborhood. It also affected other places. And then there was other M1 zones that were being done at the same time. And so you're talking about really a town-wide notification. And that's what the town warrant is.
But even if you just notified the abutters using the 300-foot scale that